For the past 12 months, I've been focusing on growing my YouTube channel, updating my workshop, and trying to expand my business. But there's been one aspect that I've been overlooking, and that is an editing space and a recording space. But today, we're gonna tackle that, and the best thing, we're gonna do it for under 500 bucks. So let's go and check out the space and see what needs to be done. So this space is kind of a universal space. It's our guest room. It's where I sit to unwind and build Lego. It's where I do all my research for my next videos. And it's also where I do all my editing and all my recording. But it's not really set up for recording. Currently, I'm sitting on the bed with the laptop and it's just really uncomfortable and it's not practical. So now that I'm on my second year of YouTube, it's time to elevate things and take it to the next level. So what I'm thinking is a corner desk that will span this whole wall and stop roughly at this window. I'll incorporate some shelving underneath for things like my PlayStation and extra Lego because that's always expanding. I want to do an acoustic corner, and I've got some acoustic panels, somewhere I can sit with my microphone and record my audio without the sound bouncing all around the room and getting heaps of reverb. And the other thing I want to take care of is getting rid of these ugly metal shelves. I want to build some nice, open, streamlined shelves that will match the desk that I build, so everything's cohesive. The way I'm going to keep the cost down on this project is by using this black laminated plywood known as form ply. Really hard wearing, easy to work with, and if you use it right, you can actually make some really cool looking stuff out of it. And as a bonus, you can pick this stuff up for like between 75 and like 90 bucks a panel. To kick it off, I'm just gonna go and rip a bunch of shelving strips. Don't worry, I'm not gonna bore you to death with it. I will show you how I do one, and then we'll move on. If you don't have a track saw, just use your circular saw. You'll get the job done. I want my shelves to be 300 millimeters. So I'll go and set my multi-square, 300 millimeters. And then I can just make a mark at either end. You can just use that as a guide to mark the rest if you want. So all this material has a painted edge all the way around. On the shorter shelves, I don't need to do this because cut one edge off and I've got two exposed ply edges which will be the show faces. But on the longer shelves where I didn't rip one side of the sheet off, it's still got a painted edge. So I'm going to take them over on the miter saw and just cut that painted edge off, so then I've got two show faces on all the shelves. Now that I've got all my shelves cut to size and I've trimmed off all the painted edges and I've revealed my show faces, I'm going to take a little 1/4 inch round over bit and just put a round over on those show faces, top and bottom of the shelf. This will just dress it up and it will just take all the sharp edge off, because this stuff, once it's cut, it's really, really sharp. And once you've been cut with it, trust me, you'll want to do the same thing because it stings. That piece that we ripped off the end of that full sheet and cut it down into 50 millimeter strips to make all our shelf brackets. So I've got all my pieces cut. These are for the two top shelves, the skinny shelves, and these are for the rest of the shelves. Now I'm going to go and just chamfer everything, then I can start screwing them together. 10 seconds for you, probably 2 hours for me. So I've got some little pieces the same thickness as that. I'm just going to make a little jig to lock my pieces in when I'm screwing them together, just to make my life a little easier, to be honest. Now I can just put my pieces in, drill my holes and just pop my screws in. I know everything's nice and square. Work smarter, not harder. There we go, a whole heap of little shelf brackets. They were actually so fun to make. I've never tried something like that before, using a jig to make things like this. And it took all the stress out of it. It took all the guesswork out of it. It was just get into a rhythm and just get it done. Yeah, I'll definitely be using that again. Now I'm gonna make a desk. So I don't 100% know how I'm going to go about building this desk. I want to keep the construction really simple. I don't want to use any over fancy tools. I do have a Domino Jointer. I'm going to choose not to actually use that. I'm just going to screw everything together. I don't want to have any screws visible from the outside, so that's going to be a bit of a challenge. Yeah, I think there's plenty of pretty creative ways that we can overcome that. I do also want to incorporate some kind of design in the side panels. I'll probably crack out some Forstner bits and the jigsaw, and maybe we'll do some little beveled detailing on the outside of the panels. I don't know. But I think what I'm going to do first is maybe I'll cut the top of the desk out first, and then that'll sort of lock in the size. Yeah, I think I'll start with that. So this is going to be a corner desk. It's a rounded, so I want to go 500 millimeters that way. 1000 millimeters this way. I want the length of this panel to be 110. Sawdust off. Now to mark out our curve. So I already did my 500 that way, and I'll mark out, let's go 400. It's gonna pop a screw in the corner here on the waist side. The same on here, again, on the waist side. Then we can get our ruler, any scrap piece of aluminium or whatever you've got. Scribe our line. Next thing I'm going to do is put a round over on the curve and this side, top and bottom. Got a little bit of chip out here, but I'm hoping that the round over will take it out. We'll see. So next I'm going to make the side panels for the shelving unit, the long part of the desk, and the end panel for the short part of the desk, I guess. So I decided to rip the rest of these panels on the table saw. So it'll be our first one at 450. Two, 300. Now, I want to incorporate a bit of design into these panels so the side panels aren't just black. Just kind of jazz things up a bit. So here's what I'm thinking. If this is my panel, this is very crude drawing, by the way. I'll run masking tape from that corner to that corner, from that corner to that corner, and that'll help me find my center. So with the jigsaw, I'm going to cut out a big circle like that, and then with the Forstner bits, anyway, you can get the idea. And then I'll do roundovers on all these circles, and then I'll do an exposed plywood border on the outside of all those panels. I know that's crude. Stick with me, it'll make sense in a minute. This will give you a bit of insight into the inner workings of my crazy brain. I'm also very aware that this is not everyone's taste in furniture, but I just really want to demonstrate how by just using cheap ordinary materials like plywood, that you can make it a little less plywoody. Using cheap materials is a really good opportunity to experiment with different techniques and different designs and styles and just have fun. Now we'll take a compass. I want to go too big, so I want to leave plenty of meat on the outside. If you had a circle cutting jig for your router, you could absolutely do it like that. Now, I get my Forstner bits and work out what size I want. So probably start with a 50. Let's go 60 millimeters out. Next, I'm going to line up the tip of my Forstner bit, each one of those marks. Let's give it a little badonkadonk. Pick a spacer, whatever size you want. I'm just going to go whatever that is, like 20 mil. I'm going to put my Forstner bit in there, set my spacer. Then I'm going to pick another size, so let's go 30 millimeters. And just line that up. And just give that a badonkadonk too. And then let's go down to say a 19. And then doing the same thing. And the spacer on the other side of that 30 millimeter. And just giving that a badonkadonk. Now, we've just got to cut the hole out and then drill out our Forstner holes. I will do a pilot hole through each one of these Forstner holes, and that'll just allow me to cut the hole from either side. So I'll drill halfway through, flip the panel over, and then drill halfway through the other side. And that just means I won't get any tear out because it'll have a clean cut on each side. I'm going to drill a starting hole, and then cut it out with the jigsaw. It's that simple. I got all my big holes cut out, and I regret a little bit using the jigsaw because my jigsaw is an absolute piece of junk and I haven't used it for a really long time, and I'd forgotten why I hadn't used it for a really long time, but now I remember. So I'm wishing I had have just used my circle cutting jig for the trim router and done it, but anyway, we're here now. I did have to fine tune it a little bit with the Dremel. They're still not perfect, but I think it'll be okay. I'm going to do a round over and we can do a bit more fine tuning and whatever then, but it'll only be me and you that know, so shh, don't tell anyone, okay? For the trim, I'm just going to set my blade angle to about 30-35 degrees. Set my fence to 50 mil. Now I'm just going to take my strips, cut them at 45s on the miter saw and just create a border all the way around. So that's our panels done. I think they look really cool. Kind of reminds me of like an 80s or 90s like speaker cover. You know, the old big bass speakers they had back in the 80s or 90s. Also reminds me a little bit of a crop circle, so you decide. Next, I'm going to cut some strips at about 75mm wide to attach to the top of each one of these panels. And that's how I'm going to be able to attach the top to the sides without having any screws visible. So I'll screw them on the sides here, and that way I'll be able to drive screws through the underside into the top. That's the plan anyway. I'm going to go and put a chamfer on 3 of the sides and 1 of the faces. Now we can go and attach our pieces to the top of our braces. Now I'm going to make the shelving unit, the long part of the desk that's going to sit in front of the window. So I need to cut this piece of ply down to 185. Then once I have that cut, I can go and cut all my strips. I can get, hopefully, the countertop and the 2 shelves out of this one piece. I'm just going to set my 2 end pieces up, and then I'll be able to measure between the 2, and that'll give me the exact distance I need. (176.5 centimeters). So I'll go ahead and cut those 2 shelves on the 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓. I don't know why it was like the worst French accent ever. Cut a little block each side, and I'll attach it in the front there, and then I'll run a fascia panel, little fascia across the front, and the shelf can sit on top, and I'll have heaps of support that way. I'm going to do this shelf the same way I did the other one, except because I've got this hole, I don't want the shelf to cut across. So I've cut some blocks and I'm going to use my multi-square and mark just at the very bottom of that hole. And then I'll brad nail those in. Now, the only thing that's left to do on this portion of the desk is cut the back panel and install that. So I thought ahead and I put some little tape pieces and drew some lines on it that line up with the back of the shelves. And then I can just say 5. And I can just go and put some marks at 55mm. And then using my ruler, now we can start assembling the curved section of the desk, which is pretty similar but also different. And make sure I screw it on the right side, hey? Screwing it on the wrong end would be a very Dino thing to do. Now we need basically a leg here. So we'll take a measurement, whatever this overall height is, and we're just going to make like an L-shaped leg that will attach on this corner, and then we can run a brace across to here. Because I'm going to be screwing into the grain, into the laminations, not against them, I will do a little countersink in there just so the screw head doesn't split. I'll still do my pilot and I'll do a little countersink. So I'll just take a drill bit slightly larger than the diameter of the screw head. Just drill just a little hole, a couple mil deep, doesn't need to be very big. Pretty sturdy. I mean, I wouldn't go up and jump around on it, but that's not going anywhere. The only other thing left to do on this is to work out for our acoustic panels. When I'm using this, I'll be sitting here and I'll have my microphone and I'll be recording. And I don't want the sound to project into that corner and bounce back and create that reverb. I think that's pretty cool, man. Ta-da! So as you can see, the room is in complete shambles, but that's okay because we're going to start installing our shelves today. Now, to do this, I'm going to mark my height. So I want my first shelf to start at 600mm. So I'll mark 600mm, and then I'll get my straight edge and my level, and I'll make a line all the way across the whole distance. After that, it's a matter of locating the studs. A couple ways you can do that is one with a stud finder, obviously. The second way is the old school way, and that's just to tap the wall until the sound changes from that hollow sound to that solid sound. So that's right on 1200, so 600mm spacings. So apparently, for whatever reason, they've just thrown one in at 900. I don't know whether they go 600 from there and 600 from there, and then whatever the center spacing is just left open. Now, you can just screw the shelf in from underneath. I've just got some 30mm screws. Doesn't have to be, well, this part is not super structural. It's just to hold the shelf in place, so. Now I'm just going to follow the same process. I'm going to go up 500 and then 400 and then 300. So the gap between the shelves will gradually get smaller and smaller until I get all the way up. But I'll spare you the details and I'll just show you at the end.
This is no world-class furniture build by any stretch of the imagination, but I think for $500, the impact that I've achieved is just phenomenal. Before this whole process, I was kind of ashamed for anyone to stay in this room with those ugly metal shelves. It had that kind of college dorm room kind of feel. Now I think it's much more grown up and it's much more elevated, and now I'm actually proud for people to come in here and I can show off what I've done on such a tight budget. And for our friends in the US, that's only like $320 US. So go out there and give plywood a good chance before you just completely write it off. You can make some really cool stuff out of it. But anyway, I'm banging on. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for checking out the video. I really appreciate your support. If you're not subscribed, go and hit that button now, and I'll catch us on the next one, legends. Peace.